recording this. And good. So welcome to the MCT show number 7. Already 7 weeks that we are running it consecutively. So I'm glad to host it and to have this week 2 special guests. We have Kim and Melissa, our MovNat team instructors from Portland, Oregon. They are not in the same room, but they will have the chance to share their stories. And I think we will have to do some kind of a ping pong to take the power of the speech. Okay, so thank you. Number 7 is my favorite number, so that's a sign that it's going to be a great show.
So, are you saving us for your favorite number, Jerome?
Thank you for accepting the invitation. We are glad to have you. Let me just do a quick introduction. So, Kimberly, like I said, you are MovNat team instructors for MovNat for a couple of years already. Time flies. And you are master trainer. You're also MNOC coaches, the online coaching platform that we have at MovNat. And you also are the owner of a gym called Point Gym and Kitchen. And also now you created this new stuff that you will explain to us, Dirty Health, that we will be glad to hear. So I see a lot of ladies are connected. So I think they're very curious to know your path within MovNat and even before that. So tell us a bit about your background, please, each of you. Where you come from in terms of sports, background, and how did you lead to MovNat? What was your path?
Okay. Do you want to start?
Oldest first. You go, Kimberly.
Okay. Well, I was born on a Tuesday on May 13th, 1980. And from there, I think I don't really remember a lot of how I got into sports and athletics and things like that, but I know that I had a lot of freedom to play outside when I was a kid. I do have memories of going over to my friend's house and climbing the trees in her backyard to get up on top of the woodshed. And I was always kind of like rough and tumble. I had an older brother who he's kind of shy and stuff, but he, when you have an older sibling, it doesn't really matter who they are, how they react. You just are always in competition with them, or at least I was. So whatever he was doing, I wanted to do it too. So whenever we'd go to the park, I'd want to race him across the park to see who won. And then just from there, got into lots of sports. As a kid, soccer was my main sport that I liked, but I played basketball and softball and tennis and tried all the different things to kind of see what fit. And that was always just a value in our family, was staying active. We would go on hikes that admittedly when I was young, I would sort of drag my heels to go. But now I appreciate it because there's no place I'd rather be than out in the woods walking with my dogs. And then, so all of that, sports and fitness stuff, I kept with me so I got my degree in education and was a secondary school teacher, middle and high school. I taught Spanish and leadership for almost 15 years, but always on the side I was coaching sports, or I was teaching at the gym. And so fast forward through all yoga and different certifications, I heard a podcast with Erwan about MovNat, and this was after Melissa and I had opened the gym. Our tagline at the gym is train indoors, play outdoors. So we always had this focus of getting people outdoors and using their fitness for something other than just you need to be fit to be healthy. It was no, you should be fit to do cool stuff. So train indoors, play outdoors was our tagline. And I heard a podcast with Erwan and shared it with Melissa. And, I was they're coming to Portland in March. Let's do this. And then we did, and we did the fast track. We did levels 1 and 2 in March, and then we did level 3 in September. And then a few months later, we were team instructors. So anyway, that's sort of just a short history from my background. Melissa?
Thank you, Kimberly. Yeah, I just mainly like come from a team sports background. I grew up in Missouri, which is the middle of America, and team sports is kind of what you get if you want to be outside. So everything's kind of on a field, or I did gymnastics as a little kid, so just like indoors on things competing with each other, which is, I think, just why MovNat appeals to me so much now. I still like doing things as a team, but not as much competing against people as doing things with people. So when I moved to Portland, like around 12 years ago at this point, just the idea of the outdoors and everything that came with like exploring and being in the woods and the mountains and all that was just totally new to me. And I was just pretty immediately drawn to that type of being outside and that type of play, rather than being on a field or being on a team or doing that type of sport anymore. So I got into guiding and started exploring more like trail running instead of road running, and mountain biking instead of biking on the road. And I became a rafting guide and a cycling guide and did that for a few years, which during that time is when I met Kimberly. So I was kind of getting big into that world, and I met Kimberly, and I had a gym background at the time already, but hadn't really put together how I wanted to use fitness. And I knew I wanted to use it to facilitate training and to facilitate a goal that I wanted to achieve, rather than just like an aesthetic means to an end. But when Kimberly and I started playing around with ideas for a gym, and as we became friends, we just kind of realized that goal of, like Kimberly said, using your training in the gym or in a controlled environment to facilitate what you do outside of it. And that's kind of a lot of MovNat's philosophy too. MovNat gets a little bit of flack for doing stuff in gyms now, I think, but I think it's really important to do things in that controlled environment for people who are starting out and people who aren't starting out. Everyone starts from somewhere everyone starts at the beginning with some skill. And so it's important to have some sort of controlled atmosphere to build on that. And that's kind of where our gym philosophy came from, and how MovNat fit really nicely into that. And then here we are speaking with you right now. I really told you our MovNat journey, so I won't repeat it.
So that's awesome. Tell us about your experience when you attended the level 1, level 2, because like you said, it was fast track. But how was it? Like, did you prepare, or did you just go like, okay, let's see what's going on? Who was the instructor? How did it go?
We did a cert that was in Portland. I don't know if it was the first one in Portland or not, but it was massive. There were like 30 people. How many people were there, Kimberly? It was huge.
Well,
so
yeah, the certification, I think the level 1 probably had like 15 people in it, but the workshop had I think there were 30. I think there were probably around 50 people total on Saturday and Sunday during the workshop. It was nuts.
Yeah, so we got the pleasure of having many instructors because of that. Vic was our main instructor, and then Stefano and Craig were facilitating with him. So that was cool. That was one of my favorite parts, was just, I think with all the team instructors with MovNat, everyone knows their stuff and can teach it, but everyone has their own way of doing that. And, you can learn to crawl, you learn to crawl one time, but you hear 10 different people explain it, and you pick something up from each of those people that is helpful to you, or as an instructor that just gives you more tools to help teach other people, because not everyone's going to resonate with this like one way you teach something. So just in general, like through the MovNat journey, it's been really cool getting to learn all the like foundational skills from everybody, from all the different coaches. So that was cool in our level 1 and 2, just having those 3 there for me anyway.
Yep.
And we trained. Yeah, sorry, your question.
Yeah,
we definitely trained for it. It was cool to have each other to train for it together. And I don't know, I think we're both of the personality where like if we sign up for something and we pay for something, we're like, okay, we're gonna do this. Like we're gonna make it happen. So we train pretty hard, I would say, for it. And then, you know, level 3 is a whole other beast. So, well, you didn't ask about that. Yeah, we trained for level 1 and 2.
Yeah, we trained, and it paid off.
Yeah,
we passed.
Well, I'm sure you did, because for those who don't know you well, I start to get to know you. You are very competitive, and in games, in everything. When we met in Tulum, in Mexico, I remember this when we went to the jungle gym and we were doing some deep knee bend balance contest. And I was happy. We were pushing each other to.
Yeah, do you remember when I knocked you off, Jerome?
Well, I wanted to mention that, but you were even faster in giving the answer. So,
oh, John, thanks for the thumbs up.
I was knocking off some guys, and Kimberly arrived, and she was like, "Let me play a little bit with you." So I can imagine how good you prepared for level 1, level 2. Were you expecting the level to be that was too low for you, too high? What was it according to your expectation when you arrived in level 1, level 2?
I think it was just given that we had trained for it, we knew what to expect. So there wasn't really anything that was like out of our comfort zone at that point. There was still a little fear of the front vault. That was a piece that we practiced. Well, at least I had to practice a lot. That was a skill Melissa got before I did. But so there was a lot of like running up to a stationary object and stopping and then going back and then running. So, but it actually, I mean, it was helpful. Just the group environment sort of elevates the dynamic of confidence, I think. So, so that it to us was about the level that we expected because we had trained so hard. So, I mean, I don't want to say that it was easy for us to pass, but I think just given that we had trained very conscientiously for it, it made our process a lot more, just a lot easier in terms of our confidence going into it and our preparedness.
So you had this mindset: train hard, fight easy, right?
Yeah, sure.
And tell us about so Melissa, you were already highlighting this, the level 3. You said it's another beast. So tell us about level 3, because it was really fast. I mean, you did it within 3 months. You did everything, or maybe the timeline is wrong, but kind of.
Yeah, 6 months. Yeah, within 6 months, I think.
So tell us level 3.
Well, I think the cool thing about level 3, you know, like level 1 and 2, you get all the information you need and the skills you need to prepare for and how to train. And level 3 is a little more ominous in that, you know, there's like, it's hinted at certain skills that you want to know how to do. But other than that, you know, it's like a lot of MovNat is being adaptable. And I think that's the cool thing about level 3 is that the emphasis on it is like, you've got these level 1 and level 2 skills, and you know that it's going to be harder, but I think a lot of it is that MovNat wants you to adapt in that environment to what you have to do. So you can know how to do, and you can be able to complete all the like higher level skills of level 3, but that doesn't mean that you'll be able to do them in the way that they're presented there. So that's what's really cool about level 3. And I won't give away what it is, but I also, for me, it's cool. It's just totally, the one that we went through was completely outdoors, and just being immersed in that was really, really awesome. You know, climbing on a bar in a gym is way different than climbing on a tree outside, and just to be able to practice that with everybody. And there wasn't this, I think Kimberly and I put a little pressure on ourselves with level 1 and level 2 to like pass there, which isn't important in hindsight, but with level 3, like trying to do that is kind of futile. Like you're probably not going to. So just having that experience and having fun and learning from all the instructors and just taking in what you can about all the skills and the philosophy were just the biggest part of level 3. And then, if passing it is something you want to do, you sort of worry about that after when you're home and you can practice those skills that you need to relook at a little bit more.
Kim, what's your take on level 3, Kim?
Well, I mean, Melissa and I, as you know, are kind of like the same person. So yeah, I think for me, it was a huge mental shift. Just as you mentioned, we're both pretty competitive, and we both, when we do things, we like to do them really well, and we like to be prepared. So going into it without the expectation to pass was like a whole new mindset shift for me, to really try to enjoy the experience. Yeah, I put a lot of pressure on myself going into it. I had like 2 weeks of insomnia. When we were there in the cabin, I basically just like stayed up in the bathroom all night, because not like going to the bathroom, but just so that I wouldn't wake them up, so I wouldn't keep my roommates up. So I just went and like hid in the bathroom because I was awake and I had nothing to do. So yeah, but I think that's one of the pieces that I took away the most from that experience, is that like it's not about the end goal all the time. Passing is not, like, that's not where the learning happens. Like the certificate doesn't show all the learning that took place. So yeah, I had a really big mental shift there about like the journey and the learning and enjoying the collaboration and cooperation there. It was a life changer for me for that. But yeah, like Melissa said, just being outdoors and changing your environment, and it was a really profound experience for me.
Awesome. Now that's a nice other angle that you presented. Last week we had Danny, on the show, and we were mentioning this level 3 in Austria, when basically he was leading a hike, and on top of the hill he didn't say a word, and people understood that we just have to contemplate the landscape and be one with the element, And this level 3 aspect that you mentioned about, nobody cares if you pass or don't pass. Of course, you put pressure on yourself, you want to do well, but it's more an experience, and it's more a community building also, because all the people who are in level 3 have been through level 1, level 2, they practice for X months or years, and they are really dedicated to the practice. And also what you mentioned about the ego, like we all have an ego, like we want to pass. I think since you started, teaching, and we will get back to that, I'm sure you see a lot of people coming on Friday or Saturday with, doing muscle ups and climbing everything and showing off, and then they realize on Sunday that they are drained, and it's a marathon rather than a sprint. So we all learn. Did you experience that? Because for me, that's a good also jump to after level 3. So you became team instructors. So I guess you had a good interaction with Danny. You talked, and how did this process go? And then what was your experience in actually be on the other side teaching?
So I guess it was the May after level 3. We hosted a certification at our facility in Portland, and Danny came out, and it was sort of a similar situation when we took our level 1 and 2, and Vic was there training with Craig, and Stefano was learning how to be a team instructor. So that's kind of what our role was during that certification, was getting sort of trained up in how to teach. And then, but the transition to being a team instructor, teaching in group environments is something that both of us obviously have a lot of experience with. it's, it's a little bit different, obviously, in that it's like very much centered on learning more than it is on doing. I mean, I know that you learn through doing, but like in a group class, you kind of go through the finer points of things and then set people off to do their, practice session. So, but the experience of being a team instructor for me is sort of, I mean, like we were joking with Krista about like the gift that keeps on giving. It's a really unique opportunity to have a big impact on the way people move in the world, and I think there are ripple effects. And so it's like, yeah, I like the fact that people will have, a job opportunity afterwards, but really I think something that I've been talking a lot about with people is, as we age and we, get older, that whatever degree you have in education, whatever job you had, how much money you have, it, like when you get to be up, in the like elder ages, none of that really matters. But what will matter in terms of the quality of your life is how well you move and how good you feel. So the fact that the learning that takes place in these certifications, it's not about like, oh, this is how you do this lift. I mean, yeah, it is, but the principle behind it, the reason that I love MovNat so much is that like, this is how you move your body and this is how you keep yourself efficient so you can keep moving. So for me, being a team instructor, I don't know, just sort of like fulfills a place in my heart that's always been like centered around like having an impact in improving the world in some way. Yeah.
A great response. Melissa, you have also one side to say.
Yeah, you want me to follow that? But
Yeah, I know it's hard, right?
yeah, I mean, basically, so like for me teaching MovNat, I don't know that it's something I expected, but after teaching, we taught an elements workshop at our gym, and before we taught our first certification, and it just felt like, for lack of a better expression, like teaching MovNat just kind of feels right for me, if you will. Like it, you can teach someone how to squat and deadlift, and that's part of MovNat too. But with MovNat, with other types of fitness training, you don't always, as an instructor, get an opportunity to teach a philosophy behind a movement, or it's just this fleeting, like someone, people are coming in for a 30-minute or 1 hour session, and they just want to be lying flat on the floor when they're done with it. And it's like, cool, they came in, they got what they wanted, and it's not that hard to like provide someone a hard fitness hour in their life. But with MovNat, just getting the opportunity to have people there for a day or for 3 days and get to talk about like, why are we, like, what's the point of doing this squat? What's the point of being able to like lift and throw this thing? Like, who cares if you can do a pull-up? Being able to like talk about those things and put more of a meaning, like Kimberly was talking about, behind movement has been really cool, and it's been just super rewarding for me, because it's the people that you get who are taking these certifications too, they're excited about it also, and they want to hear that and they want to talk about that. And it's just, I mean, everyone can agree it's cool to get a bunch of people in a room and talk about something, right? It's what we miss right now that we can't do really with all the stuff going on with COVID, and it's what's really special about the MovNat certifications is just being in this environment with people who want to learn and talk about what's bigger than like what your body looks like behind movement. And that's just been my favorite part of it, what's been cool.
Yeah, I was not surprised that you would give this kind of answer and not only saying, well, that's cool, I have a job and I can travel the world and do whatever I want, but it's way deeper than this. Like I'm sure you're saying this to your participants as well, but I believe that we are all pioneers in some sort, because, we are still a very small niche, in this fitness world. And sometimes people get discouraged saying that, okay, I was teaching MovNat in a park and 2 people showed up. Well, those are 2 people, and it's important to teach those 2 people because, that can be a snowball effect. And we can see that when you have the passion like you do, and I feel it, every time you are speaking about it, that will inspire people. Like we have Sundaraya on the chat, and I know Sundaraya, she's an Indian lady who traveled actually all over the world from India to Budapest to do the level 1 and 2 last year. And she said, no specific questions, but such a pleasure to hear the 2 of you talk and watch Jerome interact too and learn about both your journeys. Lot of inspiration and learning right here. See, so thank you, Sundaraya. That's great to
Thank you.
To see you.
Hope to see you in class again soon.
Sorry, Kim?
Oh, she took one of our virtual classes during the COVID quarantine.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. So you see, this is the kind of messages and interaction we love. And it's not only like Melissa said about doing a pull-up, or even though we love to move and we love to do the movements correctly and efficiently, but it's way deeper than this. So thank you for this answer. And you mentioned COVID, you mentioned your gym. I want to bounce back on this. When did you start Point Gym? How did it work? And the long question is, since then it was working okay, I believe, and then since COVID, what's next? But first of all, tell us about the short history about your gym and how did it go?
We actually started 7 years ago this month in May, or Kimberly will argue April, but we won't get into that. We began
2 weeks of donation-based classes for free, just to whatever. So that was April, but we officially started in May.
I wasn't in town in April though, so she jumped the gun.
So you said
I got excited.
Right? Anyway, we started outdoors, just in a park in Portland, as we figured, it's summertime, it's beautiful in Portland in the summer. Everyone wants to be outside because you only get a few months of nice weather anyway here. So we started in a park just as we sort of, got our business stuff together and did all the technical licensing and all of that. And then, we trained with people outdoors until I think October. And then we got a space that we've had for, I guess 6.5 or so years at this point. And we began with a class that was more strength based and a class that's more agility based. And our philosophy was always, like Kimberly said earlier, train indoors, play outdoors. So there's always an element of like, okay, we're doing this thing in the gym, but like how can it apply to what you're doing outside the gym, whether that's with your kids, whether that's climbing a mountain, like no matter what it is, how can the skills that you're learning and the strength that you're building in here carry to what you do beyond that. And that's also just kind of the transition that we made into MovNat after we saw Erwan's podcast. Was he was saying all these things that we had kind of been thinking but hadn't been like put together in the way that systemized, I guess, in the way that MovNat is. So that was sort of the natural progression for us to start to sort of add in elements of MovNat to our gym classes. And the gym actually began just kind of as a response to, a lot of the disheartening elements of the fitness industry where, like Kimberly and I both have worked in other gyms and like box gyms and smaller studios and all the things. And, especially as women, it's sort of just all focused on getting a bikini body or, looking a certain way, doing 1,000 crunches so that your abs look like this. And we wanted to just shift the focus and have a gym that, we agreed before we opened the doors. We're like, okay, we're never going to message like that you're doing this to look this way. We're never going to message that, anything other than like, how do you feel when you do this, and how can you use these skills to improve your life some way, not just your body some way, like outside of the gym. So that was kind of our beginning. And I can hand the baton to Kimberly. She wants to keep.
There's not that much more to say. We have 2 days dedicated specifically to MovNat classes currently. Well, not actually currently, because currently the world is wherever it is. But in theory, Tuesdays and Thursdays are MovNat days at our gym, and the other days, I mean, it's all just in marketing, I'm sure. I don't know where y'all are coming from in terms of, if you're coaching people or you're just sort of here interested in learning a little bit more about MovNat and us. But you have to kind of trick some people into doing MovNat by like not calling it MovNat. But I mean, every movement that you do is basically MovNat. But admittedly, when we started adding MovNat classes, we had people at our gym that were really like mad. They were, I don't know if they just thought MovNat was, like running around in the woods or just like whatever. But it's so funny because we'll have MovNat classes, but we put crawling into our strength classes that we have, and people don't bat an eye because the name of the class is like, oh, this is a strength class,
Great.
So,
Krista is asking us what made them mad.
Oh, I don't know. I just, it's like Melissa said, I think there are some people that really believe because they've been conditioned to believe that fitness is when you're like left in a puddle on the ground. And that if you can't breathe at the end, or if you can still breathe at the end of your workout, that you did it wrong. And
yeah, so we brought out 2x4s and told people to walk on them, and they're like,
I'm out. So I think that they just didn't feel like they were getting a workout. But I think I just see from Bernardo there, I can't see the whole chat, but yeah, I think people are afraid to realize their limitations. Like Melissa said earlier, like anyone can annihilate themselves into feeling like they worked hard, but it is really hard to be out of your comfort zone and know that I can clean 150 pounds, but I can't successfully or at least gracefully walk across a 2x4. So I think it takes people out of their comfort zone, and they're not comfortable with that. So it's easier to stay with what feels right. But that was then. We have our classes now. I think people have embraced MovNat, and they realize that it's legit.
So you said that you have 2 days of MovNat because obviously you're doing something else, and you said that people were mad, but I'm more on the marketing approach. How do you talk this MovNat message, and how do you convince more people to join? Because what you mentioned is very interesting. It reminds me of the second MCT show we did with Chi Bang in Boston. And she was saying that he was exactly applying the same technique. He was giving a workout, and people were happy for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, saying, "Oh, I feel way better, blah blah." And then he said, "Well, all you have done is you have done 60% of MovNat." So he was telling them afterwards, So what is your strategy to convince more people to get into it?
I think once people, I don't know that this will answer your question, but because it's one of those things, it's like when people allow themselves to try it, 90% of the feedback that we get is that they like it. It's just that I think people maybe have an idea of what it is in their heads that for our gym, you know, they saw Kimberly and I like training for the certs and then doing this stuff and posting, you know, and there was like crawling and balancing and skills that don't look hard, which anyone who's done them knows that they are hard. But, you know, you look at that and, you know, like we've been saying, it doesn't look hard in the way we're conditioned to think fitness should be hard. And when people sit at a desk most of the day and they have 1 hour for themselves to work out, they want to feel, and I don't blame anyone for, you know, wanting to like get it out and move, and they want to feel like they're working really hard. And the thing about MovNat is, as we know, like to be able to do this stuff that like is a little more cardiovascular, a little like more challenging, you have to master those foundational skills. So like to crawl on a 2x4, which is really freaking hard, you first have to be able to crawl on the ground or just walk on a 2x4. And in traditional gym settings, anyone can go like lift a big barbell with shitty form and make it happen, you know, but you can't necessarily like make happen skill within MovNat. So you have to have more patience to train those foundational skills to be able to keep challenging yourself with, you know, the whole like volume, intensity, complexity that we talk about in MovNat. To be able to add those things, you have to first start here. And I think there's an unwillingness for a lot of people to dial it back or to start here. So that's the challenge, I think, to get people to do it. But I think just having a gym and a space, and, you know, I think the people that come to our gym trust us in what we say. And so they're willing to try it. And I think once they try it, the feedback is always afterwards, oh, that was fun. That felt so good. I felt like I was playing. It felt like adult recess. And I think adults need that. And I think once they like get in and start trying it, it's like, okay, like I need to have this playful, fun, like feel good experience in my body, because when else do we, you know, generally really get that or allow ourselves to get that, I guess.
Yeah. And the people that come to our gym, our members that go to both types of classes, I mean, they're the best ambassadors. You know, they go back to classes, like just the regular strength and agility classes, and just talk about how great MovNat is, how, you know, how much better they feel. And then, you know, other people are willing to try it out.
It helps to post videos of the combos too, because those are really fun, right?
So what I'm thinking when I hear your responses is we get back to, I think, again, the same topics we discussed in previous shows, which is testimonials. You know, I think we should do a better job, all of us, as in the instructor team, you know, even MCTs, to get more testimonials from our clients, because I'm sure you get a lot of feedback, a lot of hugs. No, not now with the social distancing, but usually we get, you know, a lot of hugs, a lot of tap on the back saying, oh, that was a great workout, it was a great month, now I get it, now I understand the philosophy, and that will make me better on the long run. You know, all those things that people experience once they do it for quite some time. And would be good that we collect more testimonials, whether it's in a written form or even in a video, so that other people, newbies, would be like, all right, okay, I see like 10 or 15 people having the same, you know, kind of a Google review or whatever. What do you think of this? Do you think like we should highlight it more?
Yeah, I mean, doesn't hurt.
Right? It doesn't hurt, so yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a question from Krista, who was saying she got back to the fitness aspect. So she says, so people didn't think they could get fit from MovNat. Do you think that's true? Can you explain your philosophy on MovNat plus fitness, as in physical conditioning? I think you already addressed that a bit. I don't know if you want to add something.
Yeah, I mean, just that fitness is a byproduct of your practice. So, and I think philosophically, that's where the hang up is for people coming to the gym, is that like the word workout has come to mean something that makes your body feel like it's doing something hard. So philosophically, the MovNat practice session is like really, it's a session that's dedicated to practicing your skills. And once you can start to string your, like build skill and technique in areas, then it progresses into being able to develop your fitness and your conditioning at the same time. But you know, you have to roll over before you can sit up. You know, you have to crawl before you can walk. You have to walk before you can run. And I think that's it just takes a really big mental shift for people to adapt that philosophy. So unless they're already like in the movement world in some, you know, in some capacity, that like connection might happen sooner. But for just like the general population, you just like, they'll need to hear that message over and over and over again before it really like settles into them believing it, because they've had, you know, 20, 30, how many years of hearing, I have to like do a workout, like I need to go do cardio, I have to like all this other, you know, BS about stuff that, I mean, it's really hard to unlearn that, especially when it's not just like your physical health is tied to it, but also your like perception of your physical aesthetic and like your whole self-confidence and body image. Like there's just a lot of really deep ties to the workout as it's perceived in the general culture. So like it's a very steep battle to recondition people's brains to believe that you'll get more out of walking on a 2x4 and crawling on the ground than you will like doing 100 burpees. So,
I mean, you know, last week we have done this MovNat fitness challenge, and we got a lot of response, you know, a lot of hype on Instagram, because all of a sudden we included the word MovNat and fitness. So, you know, I think we preach always adaptation. We have to adapt our message to the audience we have in front of us. So that's the bottom line. And we have Patricia here. Patricia is a level 2 in Spain. She's doing a great job in the countryside of Spain. And she's saying, I have the same with my classes. Traditional fitness and gradually increasing the percentage of MovNat now. Finally, I can call it MovNat because they are happy with the results. You know?
Yeah.
So I put you on the spot here a little bit, Kim and Melissa. So you do 2 days of MovNat. Would you see yourself one day being 100% MovNat, being releasing everything else and saying, you know what, we do only this? I mean, you don't have to say yes. I'm just curious of your answer.
I'm not sure, and I mean, like Kimberly said, we plug in the MovNat elements in both classes. You know, there's just slight, you know, some slight things. There are things we do in our, what we call our strength and agility class that we wouldn't do in MovNat, and vice versa. But I think for now, just a little bit of variety in terms of a business model works for a gym setting in particular. So, you know, it's not to say I wouldn't want to have all natural movement classes, but I think for people who partake in the classes, just having an option at different things is kind of nice, because at this point, most people do both. So, yeah.
I think for the agility part specifically, the strength part, really the only difference, I mean, the lifting stuff that you do in a strength class is the same as the lifting stuff you do in a MovNat class. The only difference is that we use barbells and kettlebells in the strength class, and in the MovNat class, we use like rocks and sandbags and punching bags and other weird things. And like, I like barbells. Like it's fun to lift barbells, just as like, even if it's not necessarily practical, like it feels good. And even as a MovNat instructor who is 100% philosophically aligned with that mission, it's like it's just fun. So, but then the agility stuff specifically, like, yes, MovNat will make you more agile, but having just like random cone patterns and doing like a lateral cone run into like a, like you could do that in a MovNat class for sure. It just, like it would seem out of place because I mean, it's just training for a different thing. Like you're very specifically training a skill with that kind of stuff, like an agility ladder.
Yeah.
So I like having the two different classes. I think ideally I would flip flop and I would like to have 3 days a week MovNat and 2 days a week strength and agility. But like as business owners, that's just like, we're not going to do that yet.
Yeah, no, I understand, and nothing wrong with that. My message usually to my participants in the workshop or even MNOC is that do whatever you want. If your passion is to play soccer or to do something else, do it. Just realize that if you do have a strong baseline, then you will enjoy it more.
Yeah.
So I think that's the main message, that is not too weirdo and close-minded in doing only one thing. So I know you have only 10 minutes, so we'll start to get the questions. And if you have any more questions, feel free to write it on the chat section. So we already responded a few. Christina has one for you, ladies. Can you give a snapshot of what you did for outdoor classes when you started? Any equipment used?
We had very minimal equipment. We had like some medicine balls and things like that, but we were
jump ropes and cones, I think.
Yeah. And so it's a lot of body weight movements, and we weren't really tuned into the crawling or MovNat yet. So we were in a park where there was like a set of stairs in the pavilion with some like bars all around it. So it was a little more like traditionally, it kind of looked like sports practice outside, just more traditional like outdoor workout in a field with cones and agility stuff. And we did like throwing and catching like you would imagine in MovNat now, carrying stuff around the field, hanging and pull up stuff from the bars, but it wasn't anything we were calling MovNat yet. We didn't know about it at that point. So yeah, it was, if you can imagine like sports practice as a kid, it was fun in that way, it was more that type of setup.
And it's probably a business model we're going to be returning to since we can't go back inside right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tell us, that was actually one of my questions that I have in the agenda since we created the show, because we created the show during this lockdown situation. So how is it for you? Well, we have a long question, but we'll have to read it later. So how was it for you? How is it for you? Do they postpone it, this release week in, week out? How do you cope with this situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. As I think the interestingest thing about it is everybody is dealing with this new thing, and everybody is trying to adapt to it in a way that works for them, right? So what's been really cool for us, like we said, Sandaria was able to come to a class of ours, and that was really awesome. We've had people that follow us on Instagram come to our classes. And someone asked in a question about mobility specific classes. So we're doing like a ground movement class on Saturday mornings now at 9, which anyone can join. So the cool adaptation has just been getting to now like kind of have a global reach instead of a Portland, Oregon reach. So, we're not sure if that's something we necessarily want to like stop having once people are allowed in the gym. So we're just in the process of brainstorming ways to be able to offer virtual stuff for an indefinite amount of time and what that might look like, and then maybe add another outdoor component to local people. So, we're just trying to like adapt like everyone else is and figure out what makes sense, and realizing that it might be a total evolution of the fitness market, and things might not look like they did again. So we're just trying to think of ways to respond to that. And I think the cool thing is that we're finding it can be a much more inclusive platform the way it's been going the past month, just with virtual, like, it sucks to not be able to be in person with like our people in the gym, but it's cool to be able to have people that we haven't met who don't live in Portland be able to come to our classes. So might turn into more of that.
So don't you think it would be a good thing on the long run for people to understand that if you don't have a gym, or you have to train outdoors, or you have to train at home, you know, maybe our message could be easier to convey.
Yeah.
Yep.
For sure.
Cool. We have a question from Patricia again. She's saying, do you think it's a good complement to include mobility specific classes so people can improve their MovNat moves? Oh, tricky one.
Well, the tricky part, I mean, mobility is gained through strength in range of motion. So I guess I would want some clarification on what your interpretation of a mobility class is, but
I think what she means is that people arrive in a MovNat class and they're like, oh, I cannot do these movements, so I need to do some mobility on the side, so I will be able to do this move. I think she means that.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. Again, this is just sort of meeting people where they are. Like Melissa said, we have a ground movement class that's, you know, sort of like a more natural take on yoga, and just like focusing on your position and your alignment without any, you know, without the distraction of equipment. So we really like that. That's been, people have been really responsive to that. It's actually our most popular class when we do the virtual training, and which might just be because that's one that we offer 1 time a day as opposed to 3 times a day. But I think mobility is gained while you're doing the movements that you're doing, and it's totally fine if, I think that there are lots of people who can like work on their mobility separate from their training session, but I think a lot of people like to have it combined, just that it makes a little bit more sense. And that's our job as coaches, is to be able to scale and adapt movements for people if they can't fully get into a position that we're coaching, you know, provide them regressions or, you know, alternatives to achieve the mobility needed to do that specific movement that's being coached. I don't know. Melissa, do you have a different idea about that?
I agree with what you said.
Love you.
Now, I would add that, yeah, ground movement is something that people underestimate. I did at the beginning. I think this is what drew me to MovNat, which was my inability to do things on the ground, and I was competitive as you are. So I wanted to really improve on that. And mobility, you know, is like a consequence of being able to do things. So thank you very much. We have one new message. Yeah, so Patricia is happy with your answer. And I know you start a class in 2 minutes, right? So,
yes.
So thank you very much for your time. I think that was great. We will save this live on YouTube, and then we'll share it to the MCT group. And it will be archived also on MovNat.com. John has created a page to save all those shows, so people who missed it can watch it. It was a pleasure to have you, to see you again. We meet every year, and I hope we'll be able to meet again in Mexico or someplace without cheesy tacos. But it was a pleasure. Thank you, Kim and Melissa.
Thank you
for hosting.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks everybody. Thanks, John, for getting this up there. And yeah, if you have anybody has any other questions, feel free to reach out to us either through Instagram, or you can email us. It's just our names at MovNat.com, or you can filter them and send them through Jerome. But Yeah,
Cool.
so fun. Thanks for being here.
Yeah,
And
thank
happy
you.
birthday, Kim.
Oh, thank you.
Ciao, ladies.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.